and pull up the slideshow. Here we go. All right. Morgan, does that look correct? Wonderful. So the McAuliffe tutorial pilot is kicking off next Wednesday, October 19th. And today we're going to really start by talking about what the mission and the purposes of the McAuliffe pilot, how we got there, and then the logistics and what it's going to look like for your kid. So the mission statement's pretty simple. Tutorials at McAuliffe Middle School seek to connect students to school through opportunities for academic and personal growth. So if you haven't heard me talk about it yet, a tutorial is going to be a break in the day, and we're going to go over what the schedule is going to look like in a couple of slides, but it's a break in the day on Wednesdays. So on Wednesdays, we're going to shorten every class period, 1 through 7, to 25 minutes, and then we're going to allow for 2 tutorial blocks at the end of the day. And in those tutorial blocks, and I promise I'll get into the logistics, kids are going to have opportunities to either receive additional help and support in a subject area where maybe they're struggling or have a question for a specific teacher or need to finish an assignment, retake a test, those types of things. They're going to have an opportunity for study hall, so just a quiet place to go and work on homework and get their work done so that they can come home and do their athletics and their violin lesson and have family dinner and all those great things we want kids to have time for. Or they're going to have an opportunity for enrichment or extension. So open tutorials might include things like learning a new skill, meditation, mindfulness, how to build a resume, how to do keyboarding. So that's kind of the idea, is that we're building in time during the week so that kids can take that break and get exactly what they need and give them the opportunity for personal choice when it comes to how they use that tutorial time. But I'm going to start by just talking about how we got there. So we've done a ton of professional development over the years at McAuliffe, and I think that through the research and through our work with outside presenters and outside organizations, the number one thing that keeps coming up about how to, the number one indicator for teachers in the success of their students is the relationship that they have with them. And the way that we're able to build that rapport, create that safe place for kids, connect with them, really leads to outstanding academic and extracurricular outcomes for kids. And so, as many of you know, last year, all of our secondary sites, McAuliffe, Oak, and Los Alamitos High School, joined in partnership with Stanford University. Their graduate school has a program called Challenge Success. And with Challenge Success, it was a thorough examination of exactly how we could bring those relationships and build capacity within our kids. So their mission's over there on the right, or a statement from them that really seeks to increase student well-being, increase engagement and belonging, and increase and emphasize the importance of sleep. Looks to decrease stress, my screen's blocking it, stress and anxiety, depression, and overload for kids. So Challenge Success really for us became the vehicle that we were able to bring in and talk about change with some pre-existing work at McAuliffe. Last year, students took a survey, as well as teachers took a survey. We did an I Wish campaign, which I'm going to share with you in a couple minutes. We had student shadow days where our teachers shadowed different students to kind of feel what it felt like to go through going to a locker and going to different classes and trying to use the restroom. And we implemented test and major project conflict calendars. So in classes, kids are able to write up on the conflict calendar when they have major assignments going on, so that teachers are aware and trying to be mindful about not over testing kids on Fridays, for example. We don't want students having to study for 3 major tests, as well as completing an essay for English class all on Thursday night. We know that that's not good for students. So those are some of the initiatives that are already in place, and it's part of the story and how we got here when we talk about what we're moving forward with. So when we did that survey with students, 3 things really bubbled up as potential school changes and key areas for us to address. The support that we give students at school, homework load and habits, and possible school climate changes. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what those look like. So the possible changes that students cited in our survey from last year, so it was a year ago. So if you have a 6th grader, they weren't able to participate in that survey at that time. However, we are going to be issuing another survey. But these were our top 4 changes from the kids about possible school changes that would help alleviate their stress load. So create more time for students to work on homework and projects during school. That was the number one thing students said. 58% of students said that would help decrease their stress load. A reduced homework load, change in the class schedule, and have teachers coordinate the dates for major tests and projects. So our team of teachers, our leadership team, our challenge success team, and then our staff and faculty as a whole really valued this information. I think that hearing the student voice and giving them an opportunity to really share what is it that stresses them out, what can make their middle school experience better, and how can we support that? Well, the answer was right there. And so truthfully, the work that we're doing around tutorial, around the updated homework policy that came out for our entire school district, looking at those major test and project calendars, really came from this survey and is rooted in what kids articulated and identified as things that they would need to help them be successful at school. So this is some of the other survey data, and I'm not going to read through all of it, but we look specifically at the stress that kids experience from schoolwork. So how often do they feel stressed out by schoolwork? How often does schoolwork keep them from time with their family, their friends, and other activities? And how often does the amount of homework keep you from getting enough sleep? We know that sleep is one of the biggest indicators of student success. And so what we don't want is a student who has 2 hours of homework, 2 hours of their club sport, no time for a family dinner, and then is up late cramming for a test the next day. And so we want to be really intentional and mindful about honoring this data and the experience that kids say that they have at our school. We know that as they get into high school, that increases. And the beauty of the homework policy that's been put in place in Los Alamitos Unified School District is that it really is a TK-12 homework policy, so that our kids are gradually increasing the amount of homework and workload that's expected of them each night, so that when they get to high school, they have those healthy habits. And we're also being really cognizant as a school community about what we're asking kids to do outside of the school day. This was a good data point for us. And I think, when we compare with other middle schools, we're actually in higher, but percentage of students who feel they have an adult at school that they can go to with their personal problem, 71% of our kids said yes a year ago. We want to see that number go up. We want to be the kind of school community where kids are comfortable going to an adult with a problem. Now, when looked at, other middle schools that have participated in this program, 71% is high average. So it's above which does feel good, but it also means that almost 30% of our kids don't feel like they have an adult that they can go to school with, that an adult they can go to when they have a problem at school. We also issued an I wish survey. So the kids were given an opportunity to fill in the blank. What I wish my teachers knew and what I wish my parents knew. And some of the general themes from what I wish my teachers knew really had to do with homework and stress. I wish and this is a direct quotes from what the kids put on that survey data. I wish my teachers knew how late some kids have to stay up and how stressful it is when they give them loads of homework. I wish my teachers knew that some people are struggling more than others. Sometimes at school, students' attitudes change because of at-home troubles. I wish we had a mindfulness day once in a while. I wish my teachers knew that it's hard to study for a test when there is a lot of things to study. I wish my teachers knew, I thought this one was nice, that I appreciate them very much, how hard they work to help each and every student every day, and how much they mean to me. I wish my teachers knew that I have no self-confidence in myself. I feel like I get overworked when I'm actually not, and that I over-exaggerate sometimes. I just have no confidence in myself. I wish my teachers knew I'm trying my hardest to make my homework up, and my family is putting pressure on me, and I was sick for a week or more, and it is really stressful, and I would like an extension in homework because I can't do it all at once. So we had a ton of responses like that, almost 1,000 students who came forward with different things that they wish their teachers knew. And it really all had to do with load and how much else they have going on outside of school, that they are trying their hardest, but sometimes they can't keep up. And I think that really echoes what I hear from families that they see at home with their own kids. This idea and this pressure that children are putting on themselves, this traditional notion of what it means to be successful, that in order to have success in life, you have to have 4.0 and you have to have 1 million extracurriculars, because ultimately you're building your resume to apply for colleges, and good college equals good job equals good life, and all of that traditional pathway for success. And while that is all good, what the research is finding is that students who are stressed out and overworked and overly burdened are not having successful outcomes, because at the end of the day, all of that work that they're putting into their secondary school experience is not paying off. So we chose in this SPACE framework, which comes from Challenge Success, to really focus on the S, which is the student's schedule and use of time. So as a school community, that's really where the idea for tutorial comes from. Our instructional minutes at McAuliffe Middle School are 5,930 minutes over the state required minimum for instructional minutes at a middle school level. Part of our work this year was implementing a nutrition break between second and third period. So that took 5 minutes every day from instruction. So we take away 900 total minutes for our nutrition break, but we are still 5,030 minutes over the state required minimum for this school year, 22-23. What that tells us is that we don't have an issue with time in the seats or time delivering instruction. So when the concern comes up about reducing the amount of instructional minutes on Wednesdays, we are so far over the state required minimum. It's not about quantity, it's about the quality of those minutes and the access students are having during that time when they should be getting instruction and support tailored to their specific needs. So that's our background. Last year, we formed a scheduling committee, and the scheduling committee followed a specific process where we talked about the story, where teachers generated a list of their own interests and interests that were in the best interest of the school community for how changing the schedule might positively impact culture. And I'm going to share those interests in a minute. Then teachers came up with a wide list of options, everything from block scheduling to a tutorial on Tuesdays or a tutorial on Thursdays, 1 tutorial block, 2 tutorial blocks. Then we looked at different standards, like how are we going to evaluate which of these options meet the needs of our student body? And it was things like what's good for kids, what's sustainable, what meets our overall interests that we talked about first. And then we talk about revision. So the reason that this is a pilot and not a full implementation is because we know that we have to live it and experience it in order to make revisions that are going to best fit the needs of our school community. So it is flexible. We're starting with one model, which I'm about to explain, but that might change and evolve as we go through it. Tutorial is not a new concept. So tutorial has existed at other schools, at other middle schools, at other high schools for many years. But for us at McAuliffe and in our district, it is a new concept. It's not something that we've had implemented before. And so it's an undertaking. We've studied and we've explored multiple models, and I think that the one that we're bringing forward really has the most success. When we talked about interests, this was the list that came from teachers about why we would do this work. What interests would it meet for them and for the school community? And I think it's important to note that when we go and talk about revisions, we're always going to go back to interests. So we want to give students opportunities to learn relevant and real life things. We want to build community and create opportunities for social emotional learning. We want to provide a rich experience for kids without increasing rigor and intensity and alleviating the student load. We want to provide a better psychological experience for staff and students. We want to reduce stress. We want to give students incentives by providing them choice. And we want to connect more students with more teachers. We want to provide opportunities for reteaching and intervention. And we want to give students time to complete their homework in the school day before going home. And this is where we land with tutorial. So tutorial starts with strong PLCs. That's our professional learning communities where our teacher teams talk and collaborate about how to best meet the needs of all students. It's an opportunity to reteach those essential standards to make sure that kids are getting what they need from each class at each grade level in order to promote to the next one. We want to offer support, give homework help, time for makeup assignments, a time to conference with students, an enrichment or extracurricular activity time. All students may be required to attend. So your child might be required to attend a specific tutorial. And then if they're not required to attend, they might be able to go to any of our open tutorials. And I'm going to explain what open and closed tutorials looks like. But first, I want to look at the schedule. So as I shared earlier, we're going to shorten every class to 25 minutes. This is very similar to what we do on our parent-teacher conference days or our minimum days. So there's going to be 2 different lunch periods still. 6th graders will have their own lunch. 7th and 8th graders will have their own lunch. This won't necessarily affect you as a parent, but want you to be aware that, lunch is moved to not a later time in the day, but it's after 6th period for 6th grade, and it's at the very end of the day for our 7th and 8th graders. And then after those lunches and after they've gone to all 7 classes, they get to go to 2 different tutorial blocks. Tutorial A runs from 12:50 to 12:25, and tutorial B runs from 1:30 to 2:05. So our start and end time for the school day is still the same. We will still run from 8:45 to 2:05 every Wednesday, but what happens inside that day is different. We're calling it light delivery Wednesdays. So what happens during those 25-minute class periods is still instruction, but it's called light delivery. Light delivery means it involves instruction, but it is mindful of student workload. It should be low stress. It could be a class discussion, an opportunity for collaboration, a group work or project. Could also be like a preview or what we would call an anticipatory set for what is going to come the next day. Light delivery is not an increase on student stress and load. So we are not going to do a heavy new content, really rigorous assignment in one of those 25-minute periods on Wednesdays. That's not the day for it. We want to be reasonable. It's not going to just be free time or study hall though. So it should be intentional instruction in a 25-minute period every Wednesday without introducing any really heavy new content. As we look at those tutorial blocks, and this is where things are going to start getting confusing, so bear with me. Each week, there's going to be a different priority. So kids are going to be assigned to multiple tutorials. If my son, he doesn't go here, but let's pretend that he did, is struggling in math, English, and has a missing assignment in science, he might need to go to multiple tutorials. The teachers might require him to come to different tutorials. The priority schedule is in place so that each week he knows where to go if he has multiple stamps. So I'm making this up. On November 2nd, he's been stamped for core, math, and he knows he has a science test to make up. Well, with those three things in mind, he knows that tutorial A, he has to go to his core class. So really it's just providing students with like a roadmap for where to go when they have multiple demands on their time. And so each department has a different opportunity for priority. And as I shared, for the kids that aren't stamped, I'm going to talk about stamps in a minute, but for the kids that aren't stamped or required to attend a tutorial, they get to go to what we would call an open tutorial. So open versus closed. Open tutorial, any student can join. It could be a study hall, it could be a new skill or enrichment. We're going to cap those open tutorials at 32. So I'm making, if Mr. Lyons has an open tutorial, which he probably won't because he teaches algebra and science, but if he did, he has an open tutorial, we're not just going to fill that classroom up to 60 random kids. He'll cap that at 32. A closed tutorial is where our teachers choose specific students and invite them to come in for intervention or for reteach. So if your child is really kind of struggling with the algebra concept that week, Mr. Lyons might stamp their minder binder and say, I really want you to come see me for tutorial A. And then that student will go tutorial A to see Mr. Lyons, and he might only have 12 kids in there. And then in that small group, he's able to really get to all of the students that are still struggling to keep up with the lesson from that week or that unit or what it is that they're working on. We're going to have a different tutorial for kids that have to make up tests. And so that would be a separate room, but that'll also be a closed tutorial. So I talked about what intervention and reteach tutorial looks like. Students will be invited by their teacher and stamped in their minder binder. Study halls are open tutorials. So Miss Calloway might have an open study hall for Spanish students. And so it's open, but it's only open to all of her kids who have Spanish. This will be communicated to kids by signs on the door, and I'm going to get to that point, and also by their teachers out loud throughout the week. So as it becomes part of the culture, it'll be very normal for Ms. Calloway to say, hey guys, I'm running open study hall for Spanish only students during tutorial A this week. So the kids know, and that's where we build in that personal responsibility, which if you remember was part of our mission statement. The kids know that they have to plan ahead to which teacher they want to see for help. And as they struggle with any given concept or assignment, they should start thinking and training their brain to know that on Wednesday tutorial is going to be those opportunities to get that extra help. And then we also will introduce, not right away, but a couple weeks in, new skills and enrichment. So when our teachers were asked, what would you want to do if you could do anything for tutorial? It's all the stuff that we don't normally have time for, to be honest with you. Keyboarding skills, handwriting, a book club, a cooking class, how to write a resume, interview tips, woodworking. So as that list comes out for new skills and enrichment, we'll be sharing that information with parents so that you can help your student navigate and know what their open choices are for that week. I'm going to pause for a second. Ms. Martin, are we good on the chat? Yeah.
Yes, I think we're good as long as that's making sense to everyone about the stamping. So if students are stamped, it's telling them, we want you to attend that tutorial. And then based on the priority week, if they're stamped for math and English, but math has priority, they will attend the math tutorial. If they can attend both, great. And then if they did not get a stamp, they can always ask the teacher to attend for extra support as well.
Awesome. And I'm going to get into the details. Thank you, Morgan. I'm going to get into the details right now about stamping and those procedures. You as a parent might not need to be in the weeds on all this information, but I just want you to know like how we're going to orchestrate it so that you're aware each week. So kids are assigned to tutorials through stamping. So it's all stamps and it's all minder binders. They need their minder binder every day because that's where they're going to be assigned for different tutorials. So at 12:45 on Wednesday, period 7 ends, if you're looking at my flow chart. If you go to the left, stamp students report to assigned location. Priority students go to their priority tutorial. If the location is correct, the teacher stamps, verifying that they were there. So if a kid is assigned to go to Mr. Lyons, I'm sorry, I keep using him as an example. When they get to Mr. Lyons' class, they open up their minder binder, they get a stamp on that they were in room 13 for tutorial A. If the location is incorrect, Mr. Lyons is going to say, no, you've been stamped to go to Spanish. The kid's going to go over to Spanish. That's on the left side for kids with stamps. Unstamped students go to any open tutorial. So an open tutorial is denoted by like a green sign on the door. I'm going to show you the signs in a minute. They can attend any green open tutorial for tutorial A until the teacher determines it's full. So a teacher is going to stand at the door of an open tutorial and they're going to say, come on in, come on in, come on in. You know what, you two, I'm going to have you go to a different tutorial because maybe you might be a behavior issue. If you can imagine at middle school, we're not want 15 of our rowdiest 8th graders all in one tutorial room. And after the teacher determines that it's full, they're going to turn the sign over to closed. And if it's closed, kids find another open tutorial. Teacher stamps all students in open tutorial, so we know where they are during tutorial A or tutorial B. Teacher monitors that open tutorial using the established norms, and they report any behavior problems, just like it's a regular class. Now, if a kid has no stamps, they still need to attend a different tutorial for tutorial B. So if they're in an open study hall for tutorial A, for tutorial B, they need to go to a different study hall or a different new skill or enrichment, or they need to go to the well space. They need to go somewhere else so that they're not just in the same room and they make room for other kids to attend that tutorial. We're also going to be implementing what we call a SOAR card, and I'm going to share what that is in a minute. But basically, that's going to be for our kids that have no stamps, that have exhibited exemplary behavior, and they can have access to work outside in the quad, kind of with their friends, with supervision, of course. But that's like a golden ticket to get out to the quad. So we're running on stamps, signs, and minder binders. So this is where it gets a little bit tricky and confusing, but it won't be once we're doing it, I promise. As I shared, the SOAR card is for students who demonstrate outstanding citizenship, academic excellence, and respect for others. For a kid to use their SOAR card, they have to have no stamps in their minder binder, they have to have their ID, and they go out to the quad, they turn in their SOAR card, and then great, they get to work out in the quad for tutorial A, where myself or Miss Martin or Miss Olmstead might be supervising the kids that are working outside. Stamps are given inside the minder binder, as I said. So if you look in the minder binder, they'll be stamped under the specific subject area with a tutorial A or tutorial B. So in this example, the math teacher has stamped tutorial A for Wednesday, because Wednesday's our tutorial day. The kids know I got to go to tutorial A during when I got to go to math for tutorial A this week. They can stamp the student's minder binder anytime in the week leading up to the Wednesday. So if you at home are checking your student's minder binder, or you just want to have that conversation with them, you say, do you have any stamps? It's not a bad thing. It might just mean the kid requested it. It might mean that they haven't quite finished the lesson. So it by no means is a punishment. Tutorials are not focused on behavior. Tutorials are focused on academics and personal growth. So no student will be stamped for a behavior concern alone. Now, if their behavior is prohibiting them from learning the lesson, they might get stamped because they need to come in and get that reteach. But it's not a punishment. It's not a detention. It really is that opportunity for learning that we can't get to during the school day. These are what our signs will look like. So on the outside of each door, once tutorial starting, green means open, red means closed. A sign might be turned red for a closed tutorial, but if a kid is stamped for that class, they go in anyway. But the red sign just signifies You can't come in here unless you're stamped to come in here. Every classroom is going to have norms. Bring your minder binder every day. Focus on the primary purpose for tutorial, which is academic growth. Respect others, ask questions, use your time wisely. Students are going to be trained. And so this is where I want to talk about that. October 19th rolls out, and it's not like, boom, free for all, everybody goes. On October 19th, we have a very set schedule with a training video for students, training slides, baby steps that are going to get them kind of ready for this. We don't just throw them out to the wild on the 19th. And so the teachers will be training them October 19th and then again on October 26th before we release to kind of like student choice on November 2nd. So just know that there's 2 full weeks of that training. How can you support tutorial? Because I know that's what you all want to know. Make sure your kid has their minder binder every day. We have some extras. We're more than happy to replace a minder binder. If a student doesn't have a minder binder, they're going to get a piece of paper. It doesn't look like this, but it looks like the page in their minder binder. It's pink, and we'll stamp that separate page weekly. Talk to your student about tutorial. So tonight or next Wednesday, after they've had the training, be a great opportunity to just be like, hey, what would you want to do if you could do anything? You know, if you got to choose any teacher to go see for extra help, or if you got to go to any subject area for extra help, where would you go and why would you go there? Look at the tutorial options. So when we start those enrichment tutorials, those keyboarding skills, mindfulness, woodworking, I'm going to send that out in my weekly messaging, and you can talk to your student about that. Like, hey, you don't have any stamps this week. Why don't you go check out the yoga tutorial in Miss Calloway's room? And then check in on Wednesday afternoons. Like, that's a huge support to us. If you can just have those conversations with them after they come home from tutorial and notice, you know, do they have less homework? Is this making an impact? Do they feel more successful in math or better connected with their Spanish teacher? Is this having a positive impact on their overall wellness and their academic growth as a student at our middle school? So I'm going to exit out, stop sharing my screen. Ms. Martin has been doing a great job managing our chat. But at this time, if there's any questions that weren't answered, or if anybody wants to come off mute and ask a specific question, be more than happy to take those. That's kind of the end of the presentation. I'm going to send out those slides and this recording later today for anybody who, you know, really wants to hear the whole thing again or missed it the first time. That's going to be available to you. But yes, would love to hear your thoughts or concerns. You can just come off mute and start talking or pop it into the chat.
So I have a question. So if a class is full, so I'm trying to kind of wrap my head around how all this goes. Sorry, I'll take myself off video. Sorry. So if a class is full and a kid, like, let's say my daughter wants to go to mindfulness or whatever, and she gets there and she's the 33rd student, because you said it caps at 32. Will she have time to make a alternate decision and get to another class without getting, because that's the first thing she's going to think of is, I wanted to go into this class, I can't get into this class, now I have to run and figure out which other classes are open. And is she going to be marked tardy, or how is all that going to work if the classes are closed and they have to run around campus to try and find what other could be open?
Totally. So good question. And fortunately, we did a couple different site visits to see different programs, and we talked about this, and we actually talked to a student who was in a science class for an open tutorial, but she shared with us that she really had wanted to go to her math class, but that it was closed. And we talked about that, and she said, well, there's always other open signs that I can go to. So we're not going to mark a kid tardy if they're earnestly trying to just find the open room to go to. But that's also why we did 2 tutorial sessions. So in that discussion about, should we just do 1 tutorial block or 2, we decided on the 2, so that now, you know, if your daughter has missed that opportunity for tutorial A, she knows when she finds that open study hall, we're not going to mark her tardy, that she's going to go directly there right away for tutorial B to get that mindfulness opportunity. I don't anticipate, only because the other middle schools that we've been to, both Pioneer and Tustin and Parks and Fullerton, have similar like demographics and settings as us. I don't anticipate students not getting to take the tutorial that they want. And so that's, and if they don't, we might have to figure out a new system. But from the experiences that the other middle schools have had, they said kids really do get a chance in that 2 tutorial block to do the one that they want.
And I guess my follow-up question is, first of all, I think this is an amazing opportunity. When my daughter came home and told me about it, I was so excited you guys are doing this.
Good.
The way you explain it is perfect too. I guess my follow-up question to that is, so for the stress level of kids, right? You go into a room, it's closed. How do the kids then figure out, well, what is open? Because then what if they go to another classroom and it's closed, and then another classroom and it's closed, and then they start panicking, or, you know, teenagers, they get stressed out.
100%.
So how is that going? How are you going to alleviate that stress so that they can figure out maybe what is open what if their top 4 choices are closed, you know?
Yeah. So two things. So during the training videos for the kids, we're really going to talk about exactly that. What to do when, you know, your first choice is closed, your second choice is closed, and then, oh shoot, you're in the quad and you're having panic. So part of it is doing that whole week leading up to it with the conversations in their different classrooms about what those tutorial options are, so that kids are going to have that in mind going into Wednesday's tutorial blocks, that they know Mr. Lyons is offering a study hall, Miss Bellender is doing resume writing, and Miss McGovney is doing keyboarding. And I know that I could go to any 3 of those places. And we believe that there will be room in those different classes. PE is going to kind of be on a different schedule. And it's not even worth talking about PE right now, because we're not going to start it right away. But PE is going to be like an open choice. Kids are going to get to earn an opportunity to do like free play out in PE. But certainly we're going to have to work on that cultural expectation and building in, just like we do when they're in 6th grade and they're having to navigate different classes, like how to take out that panic and take out that stress, to know that this is really a time that's for you and it's your choice time. It should feel like high school or college campus, where you're getting to pick your classes. And as you get used to that routine, you're going to know what's open and what's available and what your backup plans are and where to go. You're going to know that Miss Wallace might always fill up her tutorial to 55 kids because she's got the room in there. So there'll be those pockets where you can go even when your first choices are closed.
Thank you.
You got it. And do I see a hand raise? Is it Gila Tarabi?
Yes. Good morning. Thanks for
Good
this.
morning.
I have a question in regards to how the tutoring for 30 students are going to take place, because obviously they have different needs. Let's say somebody needs help in math with fractions, the other one needs help with, I don't know, additions. So how's that managed? I mean, this is great, but with the amount of time that you guys have, how's that gonna, like, are the students going to work alone with workbooks or worksheets? And then
Yeah.
how's that going to help? How's that going to work?
Great question. So our closed tutorials, teachers are really going to be mindful of how many kids they're stamped for a closed tutorial. So if your student is in need of math support, the teachers really aren't going to stamp 30 different kids for maths for a specific closed math support. That's the teacher's going to be intentional about saying, I need these 12 to 15. And then when they come in, and we saw this on our site visits, which is why I can speak to it. Then when they come in, they might have like, all right, if you're still missing, you know, chapter 3 exponents, you're going to sit at this table. If you're still missing, if you just need a quiet place to do homework, you're sitting at this table. And if you really still don't know how we're doing inverse operations, you're going to sit at this table. And so the kids are kind of grouped, and then the teacher's able to go table to table and provide small group support. In those closed tutorials, like for especially English language arts and mathematics, it is a small number. And when we were in there, we were seeing like a teacher working with 2 or 3 kids at a time, while other students worked independently and came up when they had a question. The groups of 30 and more, that's our study hall. Those are the kids who might just have a one-off question, but really they're working independently. They don't need reteach. They just need quiet space to do homework. So that's kind of the difference there.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
You got it. Thank you.
It's great.
Awesome. Well, it is 9:36. And so Ms. Martin and I will hang out for a couple minutes to see if there's any other questions. But we so appreciate your partnership. It's really critical for us and our success that parents are in the loop with what's going on. Because, you never know, next thing on Nextdoor, it's going to say McAuliffe cancels class on Wednesdays and it's a free for all. That is not the case. We're certainly being really intentional and specific with the way we're rolling this out and trying it. And we're going to continue to keep you in the loop. So after our first 6 weeks, we're certainly going to share what some of our findings are, what some of our outcomes are, if we've made adjustments, and how we're going to be moving forward. So we really, really appreciate the positivity, the positive feedback, the questions, and whatnot, and the support. So thank you all for joining us. Hope you have a great afternoon, a great weekend, and thank you for the positive shout outs in the chat right now. That's very kind. Have a great day. All right, CT, I see you have a hand up. Oh, no. Anybody has any questions? We are going to hang out for just a few more minutes. I think we might be good, Miss Martin. All right. Have a wonderful day.